Okay, so I have to post this. Recently, I saw a podcast, and it was between two Muslims. And one of the Muslims, he was saying, he's Muslim and everything, but he he don't like the fact that black people, because he was black, don't have their own language. We need to have our own language. That was his message, and I feel him on that. But the thing he has failed to recognize is we already have our own language. We just have to find it again. Because when God created Adam, and if you're a Muslim, you believe God created Adam. And if you're a Christian, you believe God created Adam. So God had to teach Adam, especially as a Muslim, you believe this, that God taught Adam the words. That's what made the angels be at all. That's what made the angels be at all. When they questioned God about Adam. They said, "Are you going to create one that's going to spread bloodshed in the land?" And his comeback was, right? He knows what I know what you do not know, and what he was referring to was the words, the language that he was going to give Adam, right? He's not giving Adam Spanish. He's not giving Adam English. He's not giving Adam Portuguese or all the above. He's giving him one language because he's one individual. And then with his family, when it spreads, he's going to spread this holy language because God's going to give him the best speech, the best language, the best vocabulary, right? The most complete, right? God's teaching Adam the language himself. We're not atheists where we think the first man was like, oh, ooh, 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 ooh. No, those are atheists believe. We believe God gave a very intellectual being, Adam, very intellectual. If you think of intellectual beings, you think of Malcolm X, people who mastered the art of speaking, right? Intellectual. Adam was the most intellectual because God taught him directly the words, the language. So we're talking about a very intellectual being, right? And this language wasn't a race. It wasn't for one particular race because he was the only human being. There was no race. He was the human race. He was the human race. It was one human and he was the human race. Him and his wife. They were the human race. So there was no such thing as racism. Racism came about way later. When people got into the sun and their skin starts getting dark because God made protection for the skin and they moved out in different climates, depending on where they were, their body had to adapt. So ignorance discovered racism, right? But so we already have our language, right? And in Arabic, the Quranic Arabic is the original language. And Allah preserved the Quranic language. The Quran is preserved. That means the language is preserved. You just have to go to the Quran and learn the language again. If you want your own language, that's your language. It's not a race because Adam was one, he was the human race. There was no black, white, or anything. He was just one human race. And we all came from him. So they say, no, we need a language for the black man. That's a misguidance. And so you might say, well, why didn't God, give the black man, we need a prophet, God chose the Middle East. He pounded the Middle East. You know why? God pounded the Middle East? Because with prophets, he pounded the Middle East with prophets in that area. And the reason why is the same reason when you have a product and you want to sell it, do you go to the edge of the city or do you go to the center of the city? Do you go to the middle of the city? You go downtown. Downtown is a place where everybody goes to sell their product because it's the center. It's the place the most effective to reach everyone. If everybody meets in the center, you get the product the cheapest. You go downtown, you sell, you reach the most people at the most time. So in that time, in the 7th century or before that, right, when God was giving prophets to the Middle East, all the prophets was pretty much from the Middle East because that's where the center of the population was at that time, right? So when he gives you the prophets, it's like getting a needle when you go to the doctor. They don't just stick you anywhere. They stick you where the place where into the bloodstream where it can affect the whole body. The medicine can affect the whole body. So that's what God did. He sent his messenger, his medicine, to the most place where it could affect the most people, where it can spread. And that's the Middle East. Geographically, it makes sense. If most people is in the area, you pick the middle of it. You have people in Asia. You have people in Europe. You have people in Africa. So you sent the medicine in the middle so it could spread out. So anything God sent in the Middle East, it's meant to spread. It's meant for everybody. That's just a doorway to the medicine. That's the gateway. The Middle East is the gateway to the medicine. So when people say, oh, they're trying to spread there, it's supposed to spread. God sent it for it to spread. Just like the West, they have their propaganda. They spread it all around the world. They try to spread it. They don't keep it to themselves. They spread it. Feminism, they try to spread it. I don't know why. They break up their families. They're the worst people. I mean, nobody gets along in the West. Everybody's fighting. Nobody gets along. No family. But they're trying to spread it anyway. Who knows why? And that's why you have the passport bros and people who will leave, because they don't like what's in the West. Everybody's miserable in the West. And nobody wants to admit it. So people leave. So that's my 2 cents on that.